Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link together with a thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealons, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Roderick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Really?
Yeah, I've just spent the last hour trying to get it to all work.
Kind of figured that. When is that new computer getting here?
I don't know. Sooner the better.
Always happens right in the middle of a war, something goes wrong.
It's fine. For lesser tasks, it's fine. It's just the moment I start loading up a load of software now, it just starts to slow down, and it'll take me twice, if not three times as long to load some software up, and it's just very frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You remember back in the mid-90s, the way the internet worked? Like, you'd try to look at a picture and it'd take 30 minutes to load.
Yeah, dial-up.
Yes. My kids don't even recognize that noise.
It's the sounds of dial-up.
Yeah, they don't know nothing about that.
Whoa, I know nothing about that. What the hell was that?
That was the sound of a dial-up modem.
Speaking Chinese to me, buddy.
No, that was the sound it made as it connected. And it was pulsing quite literally down the phone. That's what it was doing. Back in the day, pre-me, so I didn't actually see this, when it very first started, you would literally have a device that you could plug your handheld phone cord, the speaker on the phone, you know, like the handset that you held with a wire to the phone, to the phone line, and you'd put that onto a microphone, and the handset itself would pick up the pulses from this device and send them down the phone line via the mic. It was really crude. You can see it on Weird Science. So if you go back and watch Weird Science, that's what they use. So they literally pick up a phone and put it onto what is effectively like their modem transmitter device to transmit the bleeps and bips down the you know, through the piezo crystal in the phone, and then down the phone line.
Yeah, I didn't get into computers, or at least own one, till I guess the 2000s.
I grew up with them.
Late
So
2000s.
all the way through the 80s. So my dad was a programmer, and he was designing internal internet for various different things. He did a hospital system pre-internet that was linking them all together so they could transfer data. Just all sorts of crazy stuff pre-internet.
Now, just look at what you just said, just with the computers alone. Look at how far, you know, we came from where you're just talking about to now. And the moon, no strides.
Yeah, but they probably knew exactly what we'd have long before we actually had it. I recently saw, I think it was Mr. Cheswick actually, released a little video of like a 1950s documentary saying, "This will be what the future looks like. In the future, we will have little devices where we communicate with everybody." You know, they're just describing social networking. They described COVID. They described all sorts of things. This is what it'll be like in 2020. And you're like, yeah. So they obviously knew what it would be like in 2020, as they were absolutely spot on.
Correct. They have it, and they just take their time coming out with more technology. But you could say the same thing with the cartoon, The Jetsons. Go back and watch one of those episodes. The only thing we're not doing is flying around in cars.
Well, I don't know if you could say they knew that they had it then. They knew where they wanted to take the development, like what they wanted to progress towards back then. I don't think you could say they had the technology then.
I don't know. They did, because I remember my uncle telling me in the 70s, pointing at the big TV box we had and telling my mother, you don't even need all of that stuff. You could have a TV as maybe 2 inches wide, flat.
Yeah, they're a lot thinner than 2 inches now.
Yeah, but, yeah, they are a lot thinner than 2 inches, aren't they?
But in any event, I think you're right. I think you're right, John.
We got all flat. Oh, no, we got another Earther in here. That's cool.
You got another what? Isaiah? Say again?
Scott joined us. He's a flat Earther.
Hey, Scott. Oh, he's on mute. Hello, Scott. No, clearly not.
Scotty. Come in, Scotty.
Oh, well, anyway. Hopefully he'll say hello, Isaiah. We'll see. I heard you pipe up a minute ago, Paul. We presumably commenting on Internet of Days Gone By.
Yeah, I missed the sound of dial-up.
It was deeply irritating, I felt. Why would you miss such a sound?
I was going to say you didn't miss anything, buddy.
Just nostalgia, really. That was a horrible sound, yes.
But you knew what was going on when you picked up a different phone to call your mate. And it went, and you were like, what's going on? And then
well, yeah, that and sending faxes, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, the fax sound, that I know. So you're saying it was similar to that? Every
Same
time
concept.
go on?
Yeah, same principle.
Yeah, principle, not concept. Same principle.
But yeah, I still agree with what you were saying, John, which is to say, if you've got a vague idea of how fast things will progress, and you can just plot it on a graph and say, well, it's going to progress at a pretty much similar rate to this. And based on technological advancements, we can expect to be able to achieve X. Therefore, if we push it in that direction, we will achieve X by around this sort of time.
So will that make it a wave?
What? Don't start.
I said, will that make it a wave?
No, it'd make it a line on a graph, maybe a bell curve. If you.
And what do you mean, don't start? Did you hear some of the nonsense that I had to listen to yesterday?
Didn't have to listen to anything.
You're right. That's why I shut it off in 15 minutes.
Right. The main point of the discussion over the last week, 10 days with Aether was in regards to, John, you kept on pointing this out. I kept on pointing this out. You can't qualify a wave with a single impact. Further to that, without diffraction, you can't qualify a wave either. Well, light in its general behaviour isn't diffracting, and that's merely a concept to describe the diffraction pattern of each, what we call wavelength of light. Well, now we've got down to the nitty-gritty of that. I suspect Whitsitt and Bob Nodell both know this, because they've paraphrased the question that Whitsitt posed to me, which is, how do you get a diffraction pattern from a single photon? And the answer to that is, you don't. Now, when that was put to Whitsitt, he tried to brush past it very quickly, and I laughed my head off, saying, "Oh, right, you want to brush past this crushing defeat, do you, Whitsitt?" Now, this got trimmed out, and then 12 hours after it got published to the public, i.e. not just the members, who got it 2 days previously, he's on Globebusters telling Flatzoid, nobody wants to address this. And what are you talking about? You bloody liar. I addressed it directly to you. You tried to brush past it because it's so crushingly terrible for your need of a wave. So, yeah, I'm more than willing to address it. I did, to Whitsitt personally. So the moment I heard that, I was outraged. I was like, don't claim nobody wants to address this. I've addressed it. To you, personally. And it's the end of the argument, because you don't have a wave if you've only got a single impact. And that's the thing they're asking us about. Seems very telling. I don't know if you agree, John. The fact that he's asking me, unless you know a reasonable amount about how this concept of wavelength is derived, you won't spot that question. Now, Flatzoid, no offence to him, he didn't spot it. His answer was incorrect. When he was asked by Whitsitt, how do you derive a wave function from a single photon impact? You don't. That's the answer. Now, Flatzoid didn't say that. Now, no offence to him, like I say, you know, you've got to know the answer to know the answer. I'm not pretending that I'm better than him because I knew the answer. But that's the crux of the argument in this instance. So you better believe it. If you know how they've got wavelength, then you know the derivative is by way of light diffraction. Well, generally speaking, light is not diffracting. Even if it is. So when we give our example of light diffraction coming through a couple of leaves, well, if you took a picture of that, you're still not taking a picture of diffraction. Let me explain what I mean. The image of the diffraction pattern that I put up in these videos, the little dots, that's an actual image on the photographic sensor of diffraction. It would be akin to there being a photographic sensor on the pavement taking an image of the diffraction caused as the light traverses the slit between the leaves. That would be capturing diffraction in a photograph, as opposed to taking a picture of light diffraction with a photograph. Because in one, the image that's got diffraction patterns on the sensor or photographic plate, that's actual diffraction on the actual sensor. Now, if you go up to that sensor and take a picture of the sensor with diffraction on it, you're not taking a picture on your sensor that's diffracted, you're taking a picture of diffraction somewhere else. Ergo, the picture you're taking is not light diffraction. Quite the contrary. Even the picture of diffraction is still comprised of light that is not diffracted. Ergo, cannot have any derivation or description of wavelength ascribed to it. So 99.9% of photographs, probably much, much higher decimal point, don't have any diffraction in them. Therefore, no wavelength can be described in any picture as far as I'm concerned, unless it's specifically of wave function, i.e. light diffraction, i.e. the mathematical description prior to its description in maths. That would be the actual dots on a photographic sensor, the diffraction itself. Very, very, very rare. But that's the only circumstance that you'll get to describe it with anything even resembling a wave. And that's not a typical photo. That's the main point of the argument. So to turn around and say no one wants to address it, no, that's where I won. You just didn't want to accept that and tried to brush past it, presumably because you realised that you'd lost when I point out you can't get a light wave from a single impact, which is what he's going around questioning people about to try and catch him out. Now, he's caught out, almost caught out Brian. He's caught out Flatzoid. He didn't catch out me. And it went out to the public 12 hours before he started lying about it, like it's some major issue we're not addressing. When I am addressing it, it's the end of your argument for having a wave. Outrageous lies from Whitsitt.
What is the frequency of one?
There is no frequency of one. That's the point.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
And that's what pisses me off.
But it's like there's people out there entertaining this for whatever reason, and telling everybody else they should be reasonable to entertain this self-contradictory idea. Like that's not reasonable to entertain contradictions.
And we're being told proactively by them to entertain it when they come to us for us to react to it. So when people are like, why are you doing this? Why are you being causing division in the community? I'm not. I've got a show that reacts to nonsense, and people have come and posed nonsense to me and then started lying about what I've taken apart about it. So I'm going to do something about that. If it comes to me and I react to it and the person ignores it, that's just like what we deal with the ballers. You can't get an elevation angle from a curved adjacent. How do you use these flat earth angles on a flat earth? No, you can't get those flat earth angles unless you've got a flat earth. Yeah, but how do you use them on a... That's baller behaviour. Me saying you can't derive a frequency if you've only got one of something, and they go around telling people that we're not addressing it. No, we're overcoming your stupid wave claim that you came to us to tell us about. Whitsit came to me. Did I invite him on? No. Why were we dealing with it? Because people come and tell us about Aether and how we should be reasonably accepting it. When it's what, like chi? Like love? That's what they're being told. We can't prove it. It's not science. It's more like chi. Therefore, Aether's real. Like, you people really swallowing this? Okay. Now, that's more power to you. Go away. Swallow it all you like. I'm not trying to stop you. If you want to go on Globebusters or some of the hippie channel where they tell you about hippy-dippy stuff that you want to believe in, then fine. I've got no problem with that. But that's not what's happening. You guys who believe in this shite are coming to us and telling us that we should be believing it also. So we reactively deal with it. We're not rocking any boats. Quite the contrary. You're coming to us, telling us what's what about Aether. Well, if you don't want us to react to it and tell you how it's wrong and pull it apart, don't come on. Simple as that. Don't come and tell us that we should be believing in your nonsense. Then we won't be telling you how it's nonsense. It is that simple. I gave up on going out to these places years ago in terms of telling them. I told Bob Nodell it was nonsense 4 years ago. Have I gone back since? Am I on his doorstep? Am I in his comments? Am I watching his video? No, not doing any of the above. Just reactive.
I think that the confusion is the day Dyslow brought Whitsit in. He thinks we called him in. That's his problem, and I explained that to him. We're not going around shaking you. When it comes to our door, we deal with it. And Dyslow brought you in.
Dyslow brought Whitsit in because he cited Whitsit, and he got called out for, citing someone at, another flat earther. So he thought that was his cue to bring Whitsit in.
I don't care about the whys and wherefores of how they've got to come to us to preach to us that Aether's real. They have, and they are. So we are just being reactive. So if anybody wants to come to my doorstep, as they are at the moment, saying, why are you being so divisive? Why are you doing it? I'm not. Yeah, if you want to moan about your nonsense belief getting taken apart by me, go and moan to the people who've presented it to somebody who just takes apart nonsense. So you want to moan at Dyslow and Whitsit, not me. Had they have not come to me with their nonsense, it wouldn't have been pulled apart as nonsense.
Hey, 10th.
Hello. Yeah.
But, interestingly enough, we can talk about heliocentrism and space-time and probably trigger a reaction to this anyway.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, you're a little bit quiet, but yes, we hear you.
Well, I'm driving through Vegas towards Idaho. I just want to say that Bob said it was science. Whitsit came and said it's not science. Bob says it's tied to magnetism, and Whitsit said magnetism is a reification. So those two have a problem. Maybe they should sort that out before they even say anything about this.
Yeah, like Neil deGrasse and everybody should get together and sort their shit out with Coriolis. You're right.
I mean, that's exactly verbatim what those two are saying, and they're opposing each other, and yet they come and say they won something.
Well, be wary because Bob has had enough of it, and he's gonna do something about it. So
Well, he needs to clean house and tell Whitsit that it is science, and Whitsit can't come on the show and say it's not science because that's just sticking in Bob's face. So Whitsit, get on the same program with Bob and quit having two sides to a story.
Oh.
Anyway, I had no problem with Whitsitt because when I asked him what was the whole purpose for it, he said free energy. He believes in the Tesla model. I said, great, go get the free energy and we'll have at it. I have no problem with free energy.
Me either. But that's the thing. Get it here first, then talk your nonsense, then shout victory. But here, how dare you say that people are an embarrassment to you?
This is an embarrassment to me.
Who are you to dictate what people believe?
My name is Nathan Oakley, and the notion of love, chi, ether are an embarrassment to me. And as a flat earther in a flat earth community, I extend that to the rest of the community who also are interested in truth as opposed to belief. This is an embarrassment. I get told that the effect that we're observing when we discuss ether is actually magnetism, and that ether is merely a philosophy and framework, but yet has a direct influence on the physical properties of magnetism, then in essence the claim is that philosophies and frameworks affect physics. That's the claim. Now, I'm not ashamed to say that that is truly embarrassing to all who call themselves a flat earther. Philosophies don't affect physics.
An energetic framework, Nathan.
Energetic as in, like, gravity being energetic but not really a force, it's only a 3D/4D conceptual medium being bent. Therefore, it's an energetic bending of a non-conceptual medium. No, it's conceptual. So therefore not real. There's no energy in a framework. Frameworks don't provide energy to anything, but yet they've got an ether framework philosophy that's causing magnetism. Why? Well, because love's real, right? And chi's real. Okay, you want to believe that? Shite. Believe it. Just don't come to me with it. That's what's happening. You're coming to me with it, telling me I should believe it. What I will do is rip it apart for an audience who get quite butthurt about it. Brian Staveley, you seem quite butthurt about this, my friend. Why? They've come here, told me I should believe in ether, like you presumably do. And I don't. And I've explained why I don't. It needs to be propagating through a medium because it's a wave. No, the description of light as a wave has come from the mathematical description of light diffraction. Something that the people who believe in ether don't understand. It's quite clear they don't understand it. And if I explain it to them, like I explained it to Whitsitt, he'll say no one's addressing it. In other words, he'll ignore it in favour of his belief. That's fine. You believe what you like. Don't come try and throw it down my throat and then moan that I take it apart. You think I'm going to be all kumbaya with your faith? No.
Well, see, that's the thing, too, is when you make a knowledge claim, right, a knowing claim of something's existence, at that point, you're saying this isn't a belief. You're saying what is, right? So even when they say it's a belief, they're contradicting themselves.
Yeah, that's what we do here. We point out contradictions, doublespeak, and lack of evidence. That's what we do on a daily basis. But when it's a belief without evidence in ether, a framework causing magnetic fields, then suddenly we're unreasonable for taking it apart? Well, you know, if you're in the wrong place, if you've got some attachment to some old dusty belief that you've been punted by some guru, that's not my problem. That is what we do here.
Correct. My brother heard it for 2 minutes, and he said he's not familiar with any of the arguments. He said, it sounds like they need space to me, or they're pushing for space. There you go.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Nathan. Well,
Hey,
what they're
Brian.
doing is, sorry about the bit of an echo for a moment. What they're doing is, and I spoke about this with you, Nathan, what they're doing is They're making all kinds of claims and claiming them as with statements of fact, as statements of fact. And then when that fact, FACT fact, is challenged, they become their opinions until people like us stop challenging them, and then they go back to claiming them as fact again until they're challenged again, and then they become their opinions again. So they switch between opinion and fact depending on who they're talking to. It's really, really low life behavior.
It's a baller characteristic. It's a baller trait.
And I've got no issue with that, Brian. As I said to you, no problem. Just keep it to yourself. Just don't come here with it, telling us that we should be entertaining it. Because we will. We'll entertain it and point out every last flaw it has.
Yeah, that's the problem, you see. Because we critique what they say and we basically put a front up against what they are claiming. They then start calling us names. It's like, I'm sorry, you can't be putting yourself, as far as I'm concerned, you can't be putting yourself out there claiming that you represent me, making all these claims that you're going to change into an opinion when it suits you. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. If you're going to make claims of fact, then you've got to show physical evidence of this fact. Otherwise, you've got to clearly state at all times that this is what we believe. This is an opinion. Not give your audience and the world or anyone who is listening the impression that this is some kind of proven fact.
Like Arwen does. Arwen claims all the time this is what he believes. Never says it is fact, it's his belief.
Well, they're both arguing back and forth now in the comments. We've got Arwen and Flatsoid back and forthing about frequency.
Are you saying, Neil, that R1 can't travel to the sixth dimension and adjust the weather?
Yeah, but he knows he doesn't. He knows he can't. What he also knows is the power that speculative justification for anything has afforded heliocentrists over the last 100 years. So while we might mock Arwen, he has recognised something that has power. That's all this is. Now, I spotted that immediately. I was like, you want to be the next person who's the arbiter of the bullshit, don't you? And he was like, yeah, I do. So it's like, okay, you've recognised where they've got power from this, and he's got a taste. He can insert any old nonsense, and it can become people's world if he happens to latch onto whatever is the right thing for the moment, right? Well, I mean, he's pissing in the wind as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure you all agree with me, but that doesn't mean he's not got rhyme and reason behind what he's doing, beyond us just going, oh, well, you're not going to have a looping whatever he's claiming on that day. It's that's never going to go forth as a worldview. But what if 200 years ago Arwen was around going, you know what, I've got a philosophy, it's just a model, but it's us hanging off the bottom of a sphere antipodal from one another in different countries. What do you reckon? We'd all go, you idiot, shut up, Arwen. But here we are, you know what I mean? So he's recognised how nonsense waffle can actually be, utilised to turn into someone's worldview.
It does seem to be a trait of human beings to want to grasp on to reifications, look at things from a perspective they can never experience, and just a desperate hold for some kind of model,
Yeah. One guru, I keep saying out of the frying pan and into the fire. You mean it's not a sphere? What is it then? Whoa. That's a bit of an alarming reply. So your immediate reaction is demand that I provide you with new answers. So you're just ripe for the picking then. Someone's just going to snap you up and gobble you down as a new guru because you're so keen for the answers to be not sought out, not researched, not discovered, but provided to you on the spot. Pathetic.
Why they want a new guru? I don't understand it. Everything when you come to a realization of what's going on, why would you want a new guru? Everything's brand new again.
That's scary to some people.
Yep. That was what took the words out of my mouth. Fear. not knowing is a lot more scary than knowing. Knowing that the sky is a vacuum and that outer space lies beyond and there's planets and there's very limited possibilities of life and all the rest of it, doesn't matter how bleak that is, that's knowing. So you can get on your day never having to look up at the sky and wonder. Because wondering, that's bad news if you're a control system that needs to keep people from doing that. You don't want people wondering and thinking. That's not good. That's dangerous stuff, Neil. You don't want people doing that. You want them to already know. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. So long as they already know, they won't be wondering about it, will they?
Right, and if you can create a philosophical framework to answer all their questions within, then you can hold that thirst for knowledge at bay. So heliocentrism is kind of that.
Yeah. And next man in line is going to recognise that there's a whole group of people that want preaching to and want answers. And if you can provide them, then that provides you with a lot of power and control. And people generally desire that, for whatever reason. I'm not knocking it, just saying that's how people are.
You did knock it a bit. You called it pathetic. I was just kidding around. Did it get quiet because of that?
Well, I'm personally tired of all the bull crap. I'm happy that this war is going on. It's not even a war, it's just an annihilation.
I don't know. I think that having a philosophy isn't necessarily a bad thing.
I wasn't knocking them. I walked off to do something just as you said, no, you called them pathetic. No, let me clarify. The pathetic person is the person who gets the message, the messenger approaches them with an envelope, and the messenger opens the envelope, and the envelope says, the world's not a sphere. And then the messenger folds back up the note and puts it back in the envelope and stands there looking at the person. The person looks back at the messenger and goes, well, what is it then? The messenger goes, I don't know. And the person goes, you must tell me immediately. I need to replace that lost knowledge now. That's the person I'm calling pathetic. The person I said, oh, I'm not knocking you. The person that recognises that there's loads of pathetic people that need counsel, let's call it, after they find out this devastating news. So it's the messenger who goes, you mean you're instantaneously ascribing authority and power of knowledge to me on the spot? It's a fourth dimensional pseudo-parallel universe. Actually, can I sit on that chair over there next to you? We can be friends. So it's gone from messenger to guru in an instant, just by going, yeah, I've got an answer, actually. It's this load of old nonsense.
Yeah, okay. But I was hoping it wasn't, when I thought like you were thinking about it for a minute. Never mind.
I'm saying for that person, I can't knock that person after literally saying Arwen's figured out the same trick, and more power to him. I think he's pissing in the wind. But by the same token, you can take that example to the example with Aether, and you don't have to draw on too many inferences from what I'm saying. If you're that messenger who finds out that there's a massive world deception, but the person that you're telling that to in almost every instance goes, well, what is it then? Yeah? At some point, you're going to go, yeah, you come here. Come and sit by me. Why not? You know, and I'm just saying, I recognise that person, that's a sign of wanting to exploit the circumstances. Now, as I said earlier, I'm not going after those people proactively. If you've figured that out and want to exploit people around you, okay, you know, I'm not attempting to change the world. There's people like that in the world. That's why we're in the situation we are, and they only get worse as you go higher up. So at this pathetic level of people trying to control people who've just been figured out that they've been lied to and are being heavily ridiculed at the time, and they want to say, I'll be your guru, I'll put your arm around you, I'll give you a bit of nonsense to make you feel better, then, okay. You know, why would I go after that person? Why would I go after somebody who tells somebody that they can take comfort in Bigfoot being real, or aliens being real, or anything of that nature? It's just like such a small potatoes problem. Meanwhile, the psychopathy level has reached such high levels that to keep us under control, we have an entire world paradigm of being on a sphere. So to me, it just seems like such small potatoes to go after that. By contrast to them coming to us, it's like, oh, if it's going to leak into my show, I'm pretty sure I said it in one of the clips, I'm going to deal with it if it's on my show. Because obviously I'm not going to profess to be somebody who takes part nonsense and, you know, quizzes what we're presented with if I don't do it because the person's a flat earther or whatever reason they've come to tell us that we should be paying more credence to Ether. It's like, okay, what's Ether? How many times have you heard to say, what's Ether in the last 10 days? What's Ether? What's Ether? What's Ether? What is it? Yeah, well, because it's like chi and love. That's why we're asking what Ether is. But again, you know, if you want to believe it, so be it. I'm not going to come knocking on your door telling you you're wrong. But you'll hear me if you're subscribed and you're an Ether believer and a fellow Ether believer comes to us telling us we should believe in it. Be prepared to be a bit offended by that. You know, don't be shocked. Sorry.
Hey, I don't care what you say. They were waiting to get on that show and was live in chat trying to defend himself. It's absolutely pathetic.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, Refracted Curvature, 10th Man, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
How's everything? Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Terribly. It took me about an hour and a half to set the show up. Other than that, things are all right. Now we're going and I've all warmed up and everything's actually functioning. I'm actually in a very good mood. Surprising how things going terribly and then functioning normally can raise you up above a level that you should have been normally at. So I'm actually on a bit of a high because things are working. Hello, Arwin.
Hello.
If you're listening, Flatsoid, please join us. Please join us, Flatsoid. You were chatting away with Arwin in the Masturbators chat, and I was intrigued by your discussion back and forth. So if you can join us, Flatsoid, if you're around, if it's too late, I'll understand. Anyway, let's do a bit of housekeeping.
Flatsoid's still like working out the poison of his presence.
I know.
Particularly in the show yesterday.
I know. I got it. That's why I'm intrigued by it. Watching that poison be pushed out by your thumbs was quite amusing, Armin, I've got to admit.
Oh, and his ace.
Oh, and his ace. We were talking about how fantastic you are in the pre-show.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, let's do a bit of housekeeping. So, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Pretty soon, Bob Nodell and them are going to come up with it. I guarantee it.
Oh dear.
3 minutes into the show, 3 minutes before Bob Nodell gets mentioned. Wonderful.
Who is this Bob Nodell that Neil keeps speaking of? I don't think we should talk about him.
Nickname Xanadu.
Bob Nodell is a fellow, very hard-working flat earther who has disseminated flat earth information to a lot of different people. So, on the one hand, Bob Nodell deserves our respect. Now, for whatever reason, he also has a belief in Aether, and as a consequence, we have his, let's call them followers, coming to us telling us that we should give credence to Aether. Now, as is the case on this show, we take apart whatever is put in front of us, and that's what we've done. Now, more power to you if you want to continue to believe in light needing to traverse a medium because it's a wave, when light waves are derived from diffraction patterns. Without a diffraction pattern, there's no wave. And typically, i.e. 99.99999% of the time, there's no diffraction in photographs. You're not taking photographs of diffraction patterns. That's a very small, niche instance where you put light through a slit, get it to diffract, i.e. have an interference pattern, and then you derive a wave function from the interference pattern you've induced. Now, that is a concept, i.e. different types of light give you different interference patterns when they are diffraction patterns on a sensor. Now, those diffraction patterns are what gets described as wave function. Later, wave length for all the different interference patterns that happen to light when diffracting. Now, that only occurs and can only be described as a wave if it's diffracting, if there is an interference pattern, which typically light isn't doing. So typically you can't describe anything about light as having a wave. Only when it's diffracting, only when you mathematically describe a wave function, aka probability distribution, and later come up with a convention called wavelength, based on frequency. Now, over the last 10 days we've been explaining, and I have explained to Witsit Gets It personally, when asked by him how you derive a wave function from a single impact of light. And the answer to that question, as stated to Witsit 4 days ago, is you don't. There is no wave to describe. So, given that there is no wave, there is no necessity for a medium called Aether. We have dealt with this. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
But there might be a 15 degrees ether rotation because of a faulty gyroscope.
Well, do you remember when I was talking about like claiming that you're on an inertial reference frame and there's a non-inertial reference frame moving above you? When I was, I don't know if you remember that.
You're describing this a similar scenario that I can describe in physical reality. That would be if you're on a stationary ground with a whirlwind above you. That would be a non-inertial rotating reference frame of the whirlwind and an inertial reference frame of you, if you like, if you're running below it.
Right. And you would see things actually deviating, right?
The inertial reference frame would give you the actual rotation on offer visibly available. Yes, you can look at something actually turning as opposed to describing Coriolis not actual deflection. Yes.
So if you say that the gyroscope is actually deflecting, then there's a non-inertial turning reference frame that we call the stars.
That would have to imply that the gyroscope itself is no longer doing what a gyroscope does. i.e. the gyro itself is drifting at 15 degrees an hour, but gyroscopic motion is such that it remains rigid in space, ergo not drifting, hence Arwin's declaration that it would be faulty if that was the case. Meanwhile, my question was in regards to axial rotation of the Earth-based variety.
No, Earth doesn't have an axis.
You'll need an R value for that. Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius.
No, actually, there's less evidence than nothing.
That's an argument from silence.
That's how much evidence there is for it. That's the
Okay.
truth.
Very good.
Well, when you say nothing, you mean nothing or no thing?
Same thing.
Hold on a
Don't get
second.
pedantic with me, Neil.
Brian, what if you use a flat plane to derive the radius of Earth, though?
That would mean that you're using the completely is a contra positive of the thing you're trying to prove the thing you're trying to prove. That's like me proving black exists because white does. Using white to prove black or black to prove white. Kind of pointless, isn't it? Look, here is black. That proves that white exists.
You have to have
You know what
black.
I mean?
It's white.
Speaking of black and white and light
There
and
has
dark
to
and
be a
such.
globe.
Any evidence
Sorry,
of distant...
Neil.
Oh, go on. Sorry, I didn't realise.
No, it's okay. I was just asking you what you said. I was talking over you.
Well, I was going to move it on. I was going to use that as a segue
white.
to any evidence of this start that again. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope.
There's an
But it's
angular
over there
size.
at an angle, and that
Yeah.
angle is probably different from the angle somebody else sees it somewhere else on the plane.
The
That's
size
it.
of its angle isn't its distance, though, is it?
Well, you could attempt
I
to
was talking to Brian.
verify an actual location by combining the triangulation data, but when you actually then test that presumed to be literal position of the sun, I guarantee you it will turn out not to actually be there when you arrive.
No, that won't work. As Brian has explained to us many times, as you back away from it, the triangle changes, doesn't it? Well, that would change its height. So, no, depending on which position you take, you're going to get a different elevation angle. Well, the elevation angle, if you're going to infer that that's its elevation, is changing, isn't it?
Yeah, you
Perhaps.
can't.
But that only supports my assertion.
No,
right?
it doesn't.
If you take-
I love that
No,
don't speak nonsense.
seriously. No, you're standing on Earth. You put a pole in the ground where you stand, you look at the sun, and then you launch yourself with a rocket tied with a rope to that original pole, and you make sure that you go exactly the angle you started out with. Well, the further you go, I guarantee you the sun is not going to be that same angle anymore.
That was
Even
our
if you're
point.
very, very fast
But
about
that's
it.
our point. It will change.
That's
That
my
was our point.
damn it. Stop agreeing with me.
You're trying to turn. You're doing. I figured out what Brian. It's taken me a few seconds to process what Brian. What I keep calling you Brian. What Arwin is doing. So what he's doing is a baller tactic where they take your victorious point and pose it back to you like it's a defense. For example, although it's not baller related, it was actually Aether related in the most recent example. Synclenser saying to Brian, well, how do you get a wave function from a knock? It's not really a wave. It's like, yeah, that's our whole rebuttal to you claiming light's a wave when we're describing how mathematical derivations of frequency isn't actually a wave. So him telling us that a knock, when it's got a frequency, how many knocks, that's not actually a wave. That's our argument coming back to us from him, the defendant of Aether, like he's being clever. Now, that's the general idea of what Arwin's just tried to do. Pose back our position to us like it's an argument for him when it's not. It's the devastating point. Now, that can throw people off really easily. No offense to you, Brian, but you almost got caught out by that. So you've got Synclenser telling you that a knock isn't a wave, and you started responding to him about how it was.
No, I didn't get that. No, I was launching into a response, but I didn't get to actually respond to him.
It's in the
We
edit.
were talking over each other.
There it is. It's in the edit. You said it is a wave, and you started launching into telling him why, and I stopped you, and I was like, exactly, Sin Cleanser. So knocking on a door isn't a wave, but he was getting you to tell him how it was.
No, I was trying to point out that what's described as wave function is like termed to be a wave, but that's only a mathematical thing. I
know. I realise. And I get that you were doing that. However, because of the speed of the conversation and the I don't want to give him too much credit, but the way he inserted it, you didn't give that caveat. Therefore, the way it came back to him was, yes, a knock is a wave. Now, I knew what you were saying, but it doesn't matter when he's got you to put it in such a phraseology that, in essence, just by the words, if you wrote them down, you're suddenly making an argument for a knock with a frequency being a wave. That's how you phrased it back to him. He deliberately orchestrated for that to happen, Brian.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't take it away from him. It was clever debating. And I actually didn't hear the word knock when he first said it. Because there was me and him talking, and maybe at least one other person, possibly Neil, at the time. So you heard it. I didn't hear the knock part. But I was trying to... my point was different from his, but he used it in a clever way. Sorry about that. I'm not taking it away from him. It was clever debating. It wasn't helping him, but it was the same thing as it's a great example of someone who you're debating using your positive claim back against you, or what you're using against them back against you, as if it helps them.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like Witsit asking Flatzoid how you derive a wave with a single impact. Well, the reason he's asking that question is the same, because you don't derive a wave from a single impact. So just to contrast this with the knock that we've just been talking about, if you knock on a door, knock, 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 you can derive a frequency from that. Well, that's what's happening with light when it's diffracted and described with a wave function to later be described as a frequency on the spectrum of light. Yeah, that's its frequency. It's wavelength. Wave function, mathematical description of its frequency, like a knock. Well, the frequency isn't of light coming towards you as a series of bullets, but more the description of the diffraction pattern and the diffraction pattern's frequency. Now, light isn't diffracting around you. That's not happening. So without the diffraction pattern, there is no wave to describe. Light isn't behaving that way typically. You can cause light diffraction and derive a wave function from it. However, you can also fire a single particle of light at a sensor. Now, when you've only got one impact, like one knock, you don't have a frequency yet to derive. This is the problem for the ether, because it's a misapprehension of light being described with wave function in a convention that gives you wavelength. That doesn't mean light is a wave. It isn't. And it can be shown how it isn't when you don't have a full diffraction pattern, or generally take a picture of anything and there's no diffraction whatsoever. No diffraction equals no wave function to describe, and that's all you're doing, describing a particular behaviour of light when it diffracts. Well, no light around me currently is diffracting, so there's no wave to even describe ever, in general terms. See this picture on screen? There's no diffraction of light in this picture. There's nothing you can describe in this picture with wavelength at all. Anyway.
Yeah, but the problem, though, is that we have attempted to have, although they wouldn't agree, a fair and honest to and fro on this issue. We are pointing out to them that the whole wave description of light is only a mathematical function, and it's not being described actually as a wave. But now they are saying, Witsit has said the light is not a wave or a particle. And Sinclair said, nobody's claiming a wave. So now they're moving into a realm, because ether is not defined as any particular thing, they're moving into a realm where they're just going to continually redefine it as it suits them. So that means you can't have an argument of fact versus fact with them, because they're working off of a hymn sheet where you can just change what ether is as you please. So
well, I have an objection.
Go on.
I have an objection to the saying it's not a wave, because they use the words perturbation, frequency, all of those things. So if they're saying it's not a wave, why do they keep using those words?
Because they've got a wave. Yeah, we had good fun catching out Witsit with his exact declaration. Oh, this whole wave particle duality is a straw man you're throwing at me. Oh, is it? So you're not saying it's a wave? No, we're not saying it's a wave. Oh, right, really? Yeah, it's a perturbation. That would be a wave. It's a frequency. Yeah, that would be a wave. All they do is then reword wave into something that's a different word for wave. Perturbation, you say? Yeah, that's a wave. Yeah, that's why you've got a medium, because it's a wave.
You use different words that mean wave.
No thing and nothing.
Say again, Matthias.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, Chocolate. Say again, Matthias.
Or I think Arwin said something about they use different words that mean the same thing, and I said nothing and no thing.
Right. No, there's a big distinction there.
I do have an objection for talking about waves. We're in the wrong housekeeping question. We should be talking about gravity. Or
yeah, good point. I know, that's a fair point. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
God, you like to stick that knife in, don't you, John?
Well, the space-time has a perturbation of light that travels, I think, was 8 minutes from the sun to Earth.
Does science even prove things anymore, or
it never stopped?
Is that where we're at? It never stopped. Okay.
Unless you realise that there's a.
I'm just checking.
Unless you realise that there's a really handy magic trick where you can just claim stuff science, and then people will believe you a lot quicker. You know, then you'll go around claiming the science for the ether until someone challenges you based on the lack of science, and then they'll say it's their opinion.
Well, I listened to Jaron Campanella on GoBusters yesterday, and he stated he was talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson stating that science is true whether you like it or not. Now, we've gone over that statement because it's an actual statement of fact. If something is proven through scientific method, it's empirical. So it's whether you like it or not, it's empirically proven. But he said science doesn't prove things. Science only disproves things. It only disproves things. It doesn't prove things.
Well, that's hold on. Stop. So that's a contradiction in terms right off the bat. Hold on. If you disprove something, you automatically prove something. So straight off the bat, to say that is a contradiction in terms, Jaron.
Yeah, he said that yesterday. I heard him, and then I shut it off.
Well, if you've got a hypothesis with a null, let's say you go to the extent of proving your null hypothesis. So you go on the side of airing with what Jaron's saying is true, which is you're only aiming to prove the null. You don't directly test the null, but we'll brush past that and say, okay, you assume that, I don't know, vinegar causes water to boil, right? Therefore, your null hypothesis is if vinegar, water won't boil, right? That's disproving the hypothesis. Disproving that your idea of the cause, which is vinegar, will cause the water to boil. So you pour your vinegar into the water and it doesn't boil. So you disproved it, right? You disproved that vinegar causes water to boil. So you've achieved what Jaren says is the case. You're only looking to disprove things. Okay. But you proved vinegar doesn't cause water to boil. Ipso facto, by disproving it, you proved it didn't cause it. So that's a self-defeating statement. Now, obviously, Jaren doesn't really understand what science is, because it's an empirical method because of the null. So you don't directly test the null. We will come back to it now. What you test is your supposition of cause. So, in the same example, vinegar and water boiling. You observe a phenomena, water boiling. You suppose it's caused by the vinegar or acid content of the water. So you formulate a hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis being, if vinegar, then water boiling. If A, then B. Now that is what you will test, your supposition of cause. In other words, you're going to vary the amount of vinegar in the water to see if it makes it boil. Now, further to your alternative, you have a null. If vinegar, no water boiling. The contrapositive of your original assertion with supposition of cause with vinegar. So if vinegar, no water boiling, then you test your supposition. That would be your alternative, not the null. You're not trying to disprove it. You're trying to prove it. You're trying to prove what you think causes the water to boil, in this case vinegar, actually causes it. So you're testing the alternative, not the null. So you add your vinegar to the water, it doesn't boil. You prove your null. So it wasn't that then. You proved vinegar does not cause water to boil. So no matter what the outcome, you prove something. You proved vinegar doesn't cause water to boil. That's proof positive. The only outcome of a successfully validated hypothesis, also known as an experiment, is proof. You will either prove your alternative, that would be to say that you got the water to boil with the vinegar, or you prove your null. You add the vinegar and it doesn't boil. Proving your null. If A, not B, tick, statement proven. So you can't not prove something in this method. That's the point. It's empirical.
Do you want an example of ballers testing the null?
Go on.
If the Earth is flat, we won't see an equator from Earth.
That's a what is question. It immediately falls outside the purview of science because science exclusively deals with phenomena. My example has water boiling. Describing the flat plane of a surface isn't a phenomena. That's a what is, not a cause and effect.
Right, but in their perception of it, because they see an equator in the sky, a celestial equater.
What?
That proves
Hold on,
that'd be flat.
I've just dropped acid. Did you say because they see a celestial equator in the sky? Does anybody else see a celestial equator in the sky? What the hell?
Yeah, right, John.
Am I missing something?
Well, it's what is the average of 2.1? But when you take the celestial sphere and you plop them together, there's a point where the stars seem to I don't know if I can describe this very well.
You go south, and a different set of stars appear above your head as you go south. Now, you can plot that different set of stars based on the perspective view you encounter of them around your peripheral view. So you've got you up in England, let's just say, and you look up at your set of stars, and you can see them above your head all the way down to the horizon. Now, that perspective view is kind of like a dome. Again, give credit where credit's due. Jaren did an excellent job of describing this as the dome of your perspective, the dome of your view around you. Now, if you then travel south along the flat plane with the sky above you the whole way, and then look up at the same different sky because there's different stars, you can plot the same thing. You can say, now I've got a different set of stars, and I'm going to draw out my perspective view with the stars above me and them reaching the horizon, kind of like it's a dome around me. When you do that, you can take what you took in the first instance and what you took in the second instance and sandwich them upside down, antipodal from one another on a map. And that's precisely what you do to later apply the Haversine formula to insert a globe in that particular model. So the two stars of the heavens over two flat planes with perspective views respectively, sandwiched upside down antipodal from one another. I hope that was where you were going with that, John, because otherwise that was a complete waste of breath.
Well, that's the thing. After you form that model, right, then they ignore the flat plane they just used. And they say that if it is that flat plane that I just used to measure and create this model, then I wouldn't see what I just measured. And so when they see it, they think they're proving they're null, right? That's what I was trying to get at, but it's not. It's hard.
No,
to
you got there. You got there. No, you did well. You linked it all. It got there in the end. That was great. I see where you're going with it. I see. Even though it's a what is question, they still think that that's a testing of the null. No, I follow you. Speaking of which, go on.
Okay, can we go back to that?
Just one sec, Chocolate. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew exactly where John was going from the start, but I just wanted to kind of pile in on him in maritime.
Okay, can we go back to that science experiment, or maybe call it thought experiment that you just laid out, Nathan, with the vinegar not proving that water, the experiment that proves that vinegar does not make water boil, right?
Yep.
So that's what you've done. You've proven that vinegar does not make it boil. My question is, does that negate that being a scientific experiment, being that you haven't explored every single cause that it could be? Does that negate that experiment?
Well, that's what you'll ipso facto do until you get to a supposition of cause that proves to be valid. So all you'll ever do is prove the null, but you're never trying to prove the null. Quite the contrary. You're trying to get to the actual cause of the effect. But your question was, does that invalidate it as science? No. That's a successful scientific experiment. Adding vinegar to water to disprove it as a null hypothesis, you're not directly trying to do that. That's sad. You're trying to prove it does. Now, the fact we already know it's heat is irrelevant. Prior to it, in that weird world of parallel universes where we don't know that heat causes water to boil, and you go, I wonder what causes that hot spring to boil. I know, I'll get some of the water and see if it's adding an acidic content to it. Oh no, it didn't. Science. You proved the null. If A, not B. Not vinegar then.
Okay. Because, and I asked this because I don't know, from what I'm hearing, science experiments that have been done are just not science experiments, because it's either someone didn't like the cause that was proven, or they didn't invalidate every other cause that it possibly could be.
No, they did.
Like,
no, that's where you're wrong. No, let me correct that. That's incorrect. So because of the type of logic gate that you're putting it through, because of the empiricism that it offers, that's incorrect. So once you establish cause, if A, then B. So if heat, then water boiling. Now, from that point forth, you have established that as the cause, never to be violated. That will always be the case. So to say, do I now need to keep going, seeing if bananas in the close proximity of water will cause it to boil? No, you've already figured out what caused it to boil. You can pretty much stop there. You've got the result. You're trying to figure out why water boils. So when you apply heat to it and it boils, you then know why water boils. You've established the cause of the effect.
Okay, so my question is, so you can go forth if you choose to formulate another experiment with another hypothesis, brand new independent variable, right? And that doesn't negate the experiment that was just done, right?
No. Furthermore, if you
because that sounds crazy to me, and this is what I don't know. I'm hearing science.
Can I
prove anything? This is very weird.
They don't know what science is. That's what it is. They do not know what
Brian, go ahead.
Sorry.
Clarity to it. Every experiment, every science experiment that is done that adheres to the scientific method has two hypotheses within it. One is your positive, one is your null. You prove one of them. So every single one of those, every single time you do a correct scientific experiment with an actually observed natural phenomenon, then you have proved your positive or your null. So it's always a valid experiment.
It always yields proof if valid in the process. So if you formulated a valid hypothesis, if vinegar or acid content, then boiling water, that's a valid alternative hypothesis because it has a supposition of cause and a natural phenomena. Can I vary and manipulate the vinegar content? Yes, I can. Is it my assumed cause of the effect? Yes, it is. I assume vinegar causes water to boil. And that's all you've got. Is it real? It has to be real, capable of being varied and manipulated by you, the researcher, and your independent variable in the hypothesis. In other words, you don't vary something that isn't your if A statement. If A is vinegar, you vary vinegar. But vinegar's got to be real, and you've got to be capable of varying it. That's it. That's all you've got to fulfill in terms of the independent variable. And all that's got to happen in the experiment is you've got to cause the phenomena to happen. In this case, you've got to cause water to boil. When you splosh it in and nothing happens, you don't cause it. So you validate your if A, not B statement. If vinegar, not boiling. Well, that's proof positive.
Can I say something? Hold on. Can I say something real quick? I have varied and manipulated all of what these guys say, and I've proven that they do not know what science is.
Well, there's more to developing a theory because, like, you can manipulate the pressure and cause water to boil at a different temperature.
Right, I was going to get to that. I was going to say there's various other things when I think it was Chocolate that brought it up. Because he was saying, does it invalidate it if you essentially vary something else and get a different result? The result you're looking for, right? You validate pressure in this instance as the cause of the effect. Yeah, that's perfectly valid also. But the question that stood at the time was, does that invalidate the original supposed cause of the effect then validated through experimentation? Just because you vary pressure and got water to boil, you find out that they're on three arms of a triangle or three sides or whatever. You know, that's what you find out. It doesn't mean you're not going to find that there's other alternative causes. That's why when you do it, to establish that one single solitary independent variable as the cause of the effect, everything else is held constant. Therefore, if you were to do the experiment with pressure, temperature must be held constant.
Right, and then you would find a different temperature at which the water boiled.
Every experiment you do invalidates the previous one. Because,
No.
Right.
No,
but you have to... Theory is when you combine those hypotheses, right?
But I'm just kind of annoyed, to be honest.
Go on, John. Go on, keep going.
Sorry, John.
Yep. Theory is when you combine those hypotheses, right? So you're talking about phase change. You're talking about water turning to steam. So then you have to test pressure to see if it can cause phase changes to other phases other than gas, right? So how much pressure do you have? If taking away pressure causes water to boil, applying pressure, does that turn it to ice?
Right. And over time, with various different experiments where you vary your independent variable that must be real, your presumed cause of the effect and capable of being varied, in this case pressure, and you do further experimentation. Now, as you're hearing from John building up this picture, you end up with lots of different experiments that show lots of different aspects of how the behaviour of this particular phenomena occurs. That is a theory, a scientific theory, because it's based on experimentation. So you'd call it the theory of water phase change, or whatever you're describing. That's a valid scientific theory. The words get hijacked, and you end up with people postulating about what something that's existing in counter space is doing, or a fourth dimensional bending space-time is doing, and they call that a theory. Well, it's not. You don't have a theory for those things when postulated. Go ahead, whoever that was.
I want to say something real quick. So when somebody says that you could take 30 scientists and they'll all say that science doesn't prove things, isn't that consensus anyway? Appeal to consensus or authority?
Yeah, unless they've got something to provide. An appeal to authority is when you say Mama told me.
That's just wrong.
Yeah, Mama told me is an appeal to authority. Appealing to somebody who's got vast swathes of experience in a particular given subject matter, and then citing their very high quality evidence for what they claim in citation, that's not an appeal to authority.
Can I just say, Neil, and this goes back to this, what you just said, Neil, is perfect because it leads into exactly what I was going to say. And I wanted to say it since the topic came up about, I brought up about Jaron Campanella and what he said on Globebusters. Jaron Campanella saying that science doesn't prove things, it only disproves things. Or 30 scientists saying science doesn't prove things, it only disproves things. Both of those statements are completely wrong. Number one, has Nathan and the rest of us have just been detailing, proving the null is proving something, right? You didn't prove your positive, but you proved your null because you always have two hypotheses in every correct science experiment. When you correctly adhere to scientific method. No, but what about when science does prove the positive? Is that a so what is that like? Are they wrangling that around in their mind? Where they, nah. You know what I mean? Where they just disproved their null. You know what I mean? They didn't prove it, they just disproved their null. It's like you prove either you're positive or you're null. If you're never proving anything, as the way they're stating it, I can't read their minds, but the way they're stating it is nothing ever gets proven. You just disprove things. It's like, yeah, that's a contradiction because disproving is proving, number one. But number two, there is times when things are proven and not, when you do prove you're positive and not you're null.
Right, you know who else says that?
Water boiling. You just proved your cause, but just because you proved your cause doesn't mean it's your cause, because there could be so many other causes. So that means, until you can prove every cause that the cause could be, you haven't proven anything. You know who says that? That sounds like Global.
Well, I was just going to get to that. So the people who also say that are Globe believers, and the reason they say it is because they've taken the empiricism that science, in name only in this instance, offers, and attributed it to their pseudoscience just so stories. So they've greased the skids with a method that's empirical so that you all immediately understand that they've proven what they say. A bit like saying there's science for ether. Well, the reason you would say that is because people instinctually know that that's an empirical method. It was taught to them in school as an empirical method. We were all taught this, just very young, probably too young to remember, but certainly old enough for it to make an impression so that when the advert says it's got science for the Timotei shampoo, you'll believe it. Well, it's not science. That's the point. Science is empirical and does offer empiricism. So if you take vitamin C, or the lack thereof, as the cause of scurvy, scientific validity offered too, the cause of people coming back and dying. Once you've figured out that they've got a lack of vitamin C through scientific experimentation, you just make sure they've got enough vitamin C. You don't say, we're not going to give them vitamin C because we haven't proven all of the possible causes of scurvy. You give them vitamin C and they don't die. So just give them vitamin C now you've figured out that's the cause of the effect with science. Don't keep testing the null, because you're not trying to figure out what caused the null, because the null is what doesn't cause the effect. What isn't having a discernible effect on scurvy? How much salt water they inhale when they're out at sea? You can vary it to see if it has a cause on scurvy, but if you already know that vitamin C is going to stop them getting it, you just give them it. Don't start telling us that science isn't proving things, it's proving nulls. That's absurd. Most advancement in humanity has come from science. Now, when you explain the experiment to people that the science is behind it, most of them don't even understand what the scientific experiment was. They understand they've got a microwave. So they understand when there's technology applied to the science that's useful. Now, if you take pseudoscience, just so stories that haven't got any empiricism behind them, they haven't offered any experimentation to back their just so stories, they'll need to tell you that science ebbs and flows and changes, so that when they get found out with their just so stories that don't make sense, they can tell you that science is ever changing, because they've lied to you about what science actually offers. Now, unfortunately, this is where I do deeply object and possibly have to be proactive about what I object to, because it's the same damn magic trick we all fell victim to. Teach us that magic is available in the form of the word science, and you better believe it when you hear it. The quote started this discussion was Neil deGrasse Tyson saying science is right whether you like it or not. Absolutely true. He just doesn't have any. But he makes you believe that when he's making such an authoritative and correct statement that science is correct whether you like it or not, that he might actually have some to offer when he makes his next statement about space. He doesn't, but you thought he did. And how wonderful it sounded to be backed up by Neil deGrasse Tyson that science is proof. It is. If you've got it, which you haven't. And then what do you know, there's a whole faction of Flat Earth that hasn't got any science either and are more than happy to tell you they haven't, while simultaneously telling you that the science for Aether. Yeah, they're greasing the skids for their just so story when they tell you there's nothing being proven in science. You mean you've used the same magic trick we were all deceived by heliocentrists with? You mean you've taken the trick of telling us it's science, and I quote, FED don't understand the science of Aether? Yeah, you've just used their magic trick, haven't you, Globebusters? To deceive your audience into believing just so stories about Aether. Now that is where I object. Deeply. And I will declare that it's an embarrassment to Flat Earth when we're here telling people about the empiricism science has to offer, and showing you how it saves lives and advances humanity with its proof. But yet you'll deny the very existence of proof in science while you simultaneously tell your audience that your Aether's got some. And come here and tell us about the science of magnetism to justify your just so stories, while simultaneously telling your audience that there isn't any proof to be had by science. So why the hell are you telling them about the science of magnetism when you bait and switch them with Aether? Why? Well, because there's power to be yielded here, isn't there, ladies and gentlemen? There's a lot of people out there that are lost. They haven't got answers anymore and they need them. And what do you know? There's a next guru in line offering them. And using the same bait and switch, the same exact scientific claims, actually just magic. Telling you that you've got science for stuff, when it's really just an opinion like chi or love. No science here, but yet FED doesn't understand the science of Aether. Yeah, you're being conned. Now, normally I wouldn't point this out unless dicks who go and listen to this garbage come here and tell us that we should believe it. No, what we will do is explain how waves are actually a derivation of a mathematical description of light diffraction. Now, light isn't diffracting anywhere in my current view, so there's no description of waves for you to need this Aether. What's that you say? I'm some sort of materialist? No, I'm afraid not. I know the limitations of describing light as particles, and we disclaim them regularly. Like the 11 disclaimers I gave to Witsit Gets It that he ignored and brushed over 11 times, to later go and lie and claim that I reify particles. No, the 11 disclaimers of the convention of particles was disclaimed to Witsit the lying shit. But that's what we've got. We've got people who are hijacking science, telling you they've got science, telling their audience we don't understand that science, only later telling us that it isn't really science, but here's my science for magnetism. You're being conned, people. That's what I'm here to tell you. And I've lost all the subscribers I'm going to lose as a result of this claim to be division when I'm reacting to people coming telling me that I should believe this. That damage was done 4 years ago, so there's nothing to lose anymore. I'll just tell you like it is. Now, if you don't like me telling you that you're being conned with the exact same con that you fell for with heliocentrism, well, tough luck. Suck it up. Yeah, you've been duped twice, haven't you? In quick succession. Now, you can either suck that up and accept it, or you can tell me that I should be more reasonable. That I've got a mute button. Really? Did that mute button stop Witsit asking me where you get a light wave from a single particle? And me answering that you don't, and explaining how you don't, and giving numerous examples of frequencies that aren't waves, and having ether believers like Sinclair tell me how they're not waves? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've addressed this thoroughly. As I say, you're entitled to your beliefs. We here at Flat Earth Debate rely upon empiricism. That's proof. That's what we offer. Shout out to Unitox Femi for the super chat. Really appreciate the support.
Well, another thing I heard, and I was in the shower when I heard this, so just in case I'm wrong, I'll put out the caveat now. Could be slightly wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I heard Jerome Campanella saying the science is always malleable. It's just always fluid. It should never be held constant, as we don't know we don't know what we're going to find out in the future, kind of stuff.
I see. So perhaps well, let me just ask Sharon Campanella directly. Should we stop giving people vitamin C to avoid them getting scurvy? Given that science is fluid, should we just see if that just maybe isn't the case anymore? Or should we accept the empirical validation that science offered in that regard for the medicine that stopped people dying of scurvy? I'd just like a response from Jaron in regards to the application of vitamin C to stop people dying of scurvy, given how fluid science is.
Hold on, I figured it out. It's the same thing as the ballers. The scientific method is too narrow for them. That's exactly what it is.
Well, maybe we could talk a little bit more in depth about ether. I mean, space-time, if we put it in context of heliocentrism.
I asked, this is all prefaced with any scientific evidence of gravity.
Well,
this would have been like had we come up against the Cavendish experiment, and then all the time that we spent distinguishing between science and pseudoscience, and instead of doing that, we just said, "Nah, science doesn't exist. Let's just get out." Like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's a problem because back in the day, when it was 4 years ago when I originally addressed this, there was people who, at the time, this isn't the case now, they've all gone, and will probably never return, that moaned at me after listening to endless discussions about how science debunks Cavendish, how it doesn't have a naturally occurring phenomena, having the pink writing on screen and seeing ballers get absolutely annihilated as they change their independent variable to their dependent variable after it being written down and being on screen. They all cheered until I pointed out that no, Michelson-Morley's not got a naturally occurring phenomena either. In fact, it's taking the same affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy that's used to claim Earth turn and using it for ether with the same exact parlor trick. This definitely isn't science. And they booed and jeered and said I should be castrated and turned out of the community. Yeah, as I say, they are all long gone, so this isn't affecting my subscriber count in the slightest.
Crazy times.
Any evidence of acquisition of an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Well, wouldn't this be the point of distinction?
Did I hear someone from Discord?
Baseline that you got from the flat baseline. That's it. There you go.
But no, that's flat baseline. I'm asking if you can acquire it from a curved one.
Yeah. You just get that curved one from the flat one first, and then, just bait and switch. Hey, this is actually curved, so because you can't tell the difference, basically, right?
No, if I'm using it for an angle, I'll definitely be telling the difference because a curved line won't give me an angle.
I don't know.
No, Nathan.
I'm here. You can't even tell the difference between your horizontal planes and curves now.
Other than one
There's a
won't
lot
give
of
you an
weird
angle
shit
and one
going
will.
on.
One won't give you an angle and one will.
Nah.
Yeah,
Go-
nah.
Go on, Brian. You've been trying to get a word in.
Yeah, just what Chocolate said it all. Like, oh, nah. Yeah, well, what you could do, Nathan, is you could pretend that reality is a tangent plane. And that tangent plane can be of any size you need it to be, thousands, millions of miles in length if you need it to be. And you can create your angles and get your distances using that when you're taking elevation angles to celestial bodies. You can then, besides any other hijacking you're going to do and adding in, you could also state that you're adding in 7/6R, which is within the dip.
Hold on a second. You just said we were dealing with a tangent plane, and now you're telling me that you can also add in 7/6R. That would take away.
I'm just saying what you can do. I'm not finished. It's going to get a lot better.
Okay, go ahead.
And then after you've gotten all your measurements, you can then place and you've created your circles of equal altitude, your two-dimensional circles of equal altitude and equal angle, more importantly, onto a sphere. Right? And how you're going to do that is you're going to take those circles and you're going to place them onto the universal transverse Mercator map, which distorts everything because nothing is in the position it really is in reality. All the continents and that are not in the positions in accordance in reference to each other that they are in reality. So you're distorting your original flat plane nautical mile measurements, and then you can use the Haversine formula to put these distance measurements, right, which should be horizontal lines because straight lines because they're going to be a radius of a circle of equal altitude. You can then create them. You can then place them as a curved line on the surface of a sphere Earth through the Haversine formula, and then claim that you are putting the correct distances onto the sphere Earth because the sphere Earth is reality. After you have mutated everything by putting all those correct flat plane measurements onto a map that is not in line with reality. You can then do a globe correction for a distortion that you created that started with flat Earth measurements.
Okay. If I start at the beginning of that, you started by assuming a tangent plane. So currently, just by pure chance, we've got the black swan image on screen. And when you say tangent in globe Earth terms would be the physical geometric sphere-edge horizon formerly known as Earth curve, would it not?
Yes.
How's that geometric horizon working out for you, Rufy? Yeah, you'll need a tangent. They don't have that anymore. 2020, 1st Jan. Black Swan. We wouldn't expect to see physical geometry. Nobody's expecting to see physical geometry. The geometric horizon, tangent point, only exists in the maths. That's Earth curve, only exists in the maths. Nobody's claiming the horizon is Earth curve. That's a geometric tangent point. These are all quotes from our opposing side, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So your first point where you started with a tangent, they don't have one.
They claim the tangent's at the feet now. Well, they've changed to the feet.
They've got two tangents. So if the tangent's at your feet, where's Earth curve?
That's on the second. The second tangent goes on there, course.
Sorry.
I got the third tangent over here.
How many tangents do you need when you're taking an angle from a flat plane?
As many as you need.
Well, the second tangent technically would be underneath the first tangent and wouldn't be seen because the first tangent would technically be so long that you wouldn't be able to see the second tangent. But the second tangent is there.
And so is the first one. So...
No. You're measuring an angle from a flat baseline. There's no tangent to anything.
Yeah, and well, look, there's a few
I'm all
issues with
confused.
it, but the Haversine sorts it out. Because when we take these flat plane measurements and these flat circles, two-dimensional circles of equal altitude, and place them onto the universal transverse Mercator map to distort them, we will then correct that distortion by hijacking the celestial sphere model and placing the straight line radii of those circles of equal latitude along the surface of a sphere Earth with a radius of 3959 miles. So we'll get a correct statute mile distance along the surface of that sphere Earth. Because we corrected from the universal transverse Mercator map, because that distorted the original flat plane measurements that were taken. So we will then claim that we corrected the distorted distances, and to correct that, we required a globe. But those distorted distances were only distorted because the original nautical mile measurements that were created across a flat plane were put onto this map that distorts them. So maybe if we didn't put those flat plane measurements onto a map that distorts them, there wouldn't be a need for any formula to correct them into correct statute mile distances along the surface of a sphere Earth. Just said I'd throw it out there.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, I got back, but I had a rebuttal to everything that was talked about just now, and that is that the Haversine formula actually proves that, yeah, the flat Earth is based on the globe, not the other way around.
No, Brian just literally 30 seconds ago went through taking flat Earth angle measurements off a flat Earth, applying them on two-dimensional flat circles to a map that's flat but has been distorted so they can take out the distortion the map was originally introduced with to claim that it's on a sphere with the Haversine formula. That's very much using flat Earth elevation angle measurements from a flat plane that was originally used to design the map in the first place with the distortion. So that's all flat Earth requiring, Arwin.
Now, only within the math. No, it's only required within the math, because in the real world, it still proves it's based off a globe.
In the math, you're creating the globe. What are you talking about?
Yeah. See, when we get a 45-degree angle to a celestial body, that gives us a 2,700 nautical mile horizontal distance. That horizontal distance becomes the radius, which is a straight line, of a circle of equal latitude, which is a two-dimensional circle. So that circle will also have a diameter, which would be double that radius, which would be 5,400 nautical miles. That's also a horizontal line, because it has to be. So we're dealing with two dimensions. So radius and its diameter and a circle, that's three two-dimensional, let's say, references. So, right. So when that 2,700 nautical mile distance is eventually, after a load of malarkey, is turned into a statute mile distance along the surface of a sphere, does that change the fact that that had to be measured? That correct distance had to be measured horizontally?
That's how it's measured. It doesn't make any difference. That's how it's measured.
Like you said,
if
you're going to use a 2D model, then of course you're going to have to need all that, right? Because that's what the flat Earth is. It's a 2D model. And the Globers only are trying to turn it into a 3D model, which is the real globe. I don't know what I'm talking about at this point. But
what?
Yeah, with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smash the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, smash the thanks button, and all that good stuff. And of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either programming stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
For space time, it makes no sense.
Space.
That's what they sound like.
Space time. is the medium. Light is the wave of space-time.
Oh, okay.
What,
See, my
are you
brother
guys
heard
sorry? Was that muttering? Hold on. Just let me clarify something, guys. Was that muttering and murmuring you disagreeing with him? Because all he's doing is laying out heliocentric rhetoric. Literally, that's what it's claimed to be.
And I was about to back him up. Say, yeah. In conceptual medium, you could have it whatever you want.
I agreed on
No,
it.
you can't just do whatever you want in conceptual medium. Everybody would have to agree within the conceptual medium that it is correct before you can do something.
Beautiful. See, somebody, I won't say who, took the mickey out of you for some of the conceptual ideas that you do disclaim. They also preface it by pointing out that you do disclaim it. But I just want to point out, I'm so glad you've said that at the end of the show with what we said in the pre-show, because that shows or highlights what I was trying to make out, or what I was trying to sum up with Arwin. In other words, he takes this seriously. In other words, for this conceptual medium to have any strength and validity, we've all got to agree on what it is for it to be our world, right? Now, you don't normally add that disclaimer, and Arwin would, but I'm just trying to point out that Arwin does understand the power of this stuff, and when he says sentences like he just did, no, we've all got to agree on it, he means it, and he's right.
Do they really though? Because there's
from a bowling perspective,
different types of gravity.
95% of the world agrees with my space-time, so my convention holds.
Exactly.
Only because they don't understand what the hell you're talking about.
That works too.
That's your claim, but 95% agree with me.
No, then you just need consensus in science. Scientists must agree. For you to be told that scientists agree, then you don't have to worry about your consensus being part of the mix.
But the high priest of the shit say, oh, as far as what it is, we don't know.
Right,
They don't even know what the hell it is. But they got y'all arguing about it with each other? Like, this is crazy. You gotta be kidding me. We don't know what gravity is.
Well, we can't know because it's outside the... We can't know it's outside the physical world, Chocolate.
Hold on.
It's like counter space.
Well, we could call it counter space. It's just a measure of space and time, is all.
Well, the perfect rebuttal to when Neil deGrasse Tyson said, I don't know, next question is, okay, so if you don't know what gravity is, then why do you keep using it in your lingo? That should have been the follow-up question.
It should have been.
Can't do that.
Ended.
Can't ask that.
Can't. I gotta.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a conceptual framework.
The girl who was interviewing him was never going to ask him something like that.
She was blown away.
Well, I will answer for Neil deGrasse Tyson. It is a conceptual framework we use to understand our world and universe.
And that conceptual framework we use to describe our universe has a direct effect on you. The conceptual framework.
Wouldn't you need to know what it is before you're using it to describe everything?
We don't know what it is, but what we do know is it has a direct effect on you. It's the conceptual framework causing stuff to happen, Arwin. What's wrong with you?
Sounds
it's like an energetic background.
It sounds
even in the concept, we can't actually explain it. So we have to come up with another conceptual framework and call that dark matter. Yay.
This is eerily
right.
familiar.
So dark matter has to exist in order for something to be able to be part of the model, even though they don't know what it is. Next question.
Correct. Absolutely spot on. Yes.
Hold on, I have a question. If we can see this, hold on, if we can see this, how come they can't see this?
Maybe they can. Maybe that's what's... When you see people turn to anti-flat Earth because they don't like the fact that they've been duped, whatever the motivation is, I'm not going to speak to that. But for whatever reason, they turn to that dark side. Well, the same thing happens because it's a human reaction. So when you hear Fundy muting and moaning about the mute button, appeal to format, telling people that I'm unreasonable, telling people I'm not a good person, moaning about me saying it's an embarrassment, those are all human reactions. The same reactions we get from the ballers. Because you don't like being shown to be wrong. People don't like being shown. It's not ballers don't like being shown to be on a ball. No one wants to be duped. Now, when they are, they rebel against it. So you're saying, why don't they see it? Because no one wants to have been conned. They'd much rather convince you that you don't understand what's going on and how this system of swapping the money out for a different currency will definitely yield 400% profit. You just don't understand the con I'm being subjected to that you're trying to save me from because you're a wanker. You're not trying to help
Nathan.
me. You're causing problems with my con that I'm believing in.
Right, I just wanted to correct you slightly. I don't think that people don't want to be conned. They just don't want to be publicly exposed or feel exposed about being conned.
Then don't come here. Then don't come here. Don't come here. That's it.
You're right. This is a public platform. The doors are open to the public daily. Come in, tell us about your worldview, right? That's the opening statement on the show. I changed it intentionally. Come and tell us about your beliefs on the nature of our world. So we get them. Come and I encourage it so that people can come and present it because we want to know too if it's real. But if it isn't, you can have it ripped apart. There's no prejudice.
Right, we will dissect.
Right, and so space-time should be equally represented if you flat earthers are going to introduce the ether.
Or compared and contrasted, as it's basically the equivalent. I mean, it just shocks me that we have this still rife from the Feast of Nonsense. We addressed Earth Curve. We've got a pizza pie with a boat falling over it because Earth Curve's got a boat falling over it in the maths. We addressed the dome. Why are we being held to task on proving that there's a physical barrier for the gas pressure we're breathing? Oh, because they've got a violation of natural law sky vacuum. So we're addressing these things. So then when it comes to gravity, which is basically what this is, you've got almost identical claims, but from a flat Earth perspective, some of which include gravity. Oh my God. Sometimes when I hear this stuff, I'm like, I do feel embarrassed. When I say this is an embarrassment to flat Earth, it is me projecting out. I mean, this is so hypocritical because I'm telling Witsit off for projecting out when he says everybody or nobody believes this. It's like I'm doing the same when I say this is an embarrassment to flat Earth. No, it's an embarrassment to me. I'm embarrassed by this. But as a host of a show with a panel who, to be fair to you, you especially, John, thank you, immediately backed me up in that. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Of course. I mean, we have a standard to hold up. That doesn't mean we can literally speak for all flat earthers, but we're trying to, basically.
Yeah, I should only speak for here at Flat Earth Debate. Here at Flat Earth Debate, this is an embarrassment to us as, God, it makes me feel sick to say it, truth seekers. This has no truth. It has magic tricks that have been yanked from heliocentric magic tricks, especially when it comes to science. That's what we're disseminating when it comes to heliocentrism, and we get praised for it. If we do the same thing and point out the same magic trick being used in our own community, somehow we're bad for doing it. Well, maybe 4 years ago, and maybe there's only a few stragglers that don't realise that this is something that we have to react to now and again, and they're like shocked and shaken that Flat Earth Debate don't believe in ether and counter space. And, well, yeah, I mean, if you understand that chi is real, you'll understand that the counter space is real. What? You'll understand that we don't think it's science, but now let me tell you about the science of magnetism for a few days. What? Hello, are you really going to fall for this? Okay? Just don't come and tell me about it. Don't try and look for your confirmation bias here, because you won't get it. And don't think that because you're not getting it, that somehow that needs correcting. That you need confirmation bias in the ether to come from all formats that are flat Earth related. That's never going to happen.
Nah.
Well, I didn't catch why Chocolate said nah, but that's normally something sarcastic. But the term you brought up a few minutes ago, truth seekers, right? Let's say truth is from 0 to 100, right? Some people can only take in 60. A lot of people get to 30 and they let it go, right? The average is 30 to 40, most people. 30 to 40, right? When it comes to actual truth, right? I'm not talking about personal truth. I'm talking about actual truth to do with our world, right? Like, the things personally you may not want to deal with, and that's a different 0 to 100. But actual truth to do with our world, you know, that's a 30 to 40. Most people around the 30 to 40. They take it about 30 or 40 they get to that percent. Let's say if it was a scale, they get up to 30 or 40%. They won't go past that. Well, some people did go past that. And some of those people are flat earthers. They say, no, the earth is flat, right? And they can prove the earth is geometrically flat. But those people, unfortunately, stopped at 60 to 70%, a lot of them. And that's the problem. And they think because they got past that 30 to 40%, that means they're open to everything. But they're not open to everything. Because when it's pointed out to them that something they're talking about is not correct, or doesn't have factual evidence to support it, or you can't make those claims because it's only a belief or an opinion. So you can't claim it's causing something or doing something. They just don't want to hear it.
There's a quote from Vic.
They're stuck at 60 to 70%.
You know, Vic Reeves is.
Yeah, you're talking about all statistics. 60% of statistics are made up on the spot.
I was going to say 15 to 25% of statistics are made up on the spot. I was going to paraphrase his quote for humorous effect because you kept giving sliding scales. But there we go.
Well, yeah, but that's the point I'm making is when you say truth seekers seek truth, but everybody has a limit. I won't say everyone has a limit, but it's proven that most people have a limit to where truth gets too difficult to deal with. And that's what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with a situation where people have gotten to their truth ceiling.
Right. Well, this is something I can regale fondly in regards to a memory of Jaron's dissemination of exactly this when it came to globe Earth. He and his wife are going through their historic books that they sold at the time and coming to the conclusion that they need to write off a lot of what they've come to, and basically all of it has to be reconsidered. And when it came to the globe Earth, Jaron's wife says, well, what about the globe Earth? And Jaron's reaction instinctually is, well, we're not going to go that far. We're going to throw all of it out. And that's kind of what you're saying. That's your percentage level. There's going to be a limit that people reach. They go, well, I'm not going to disavow my idea that the Earth's a sphere. Well, he can directly relate and had disseminated that out to his audience. And you can go, yeah, I can relate to that. Relate, not from experience. I didn't have that feeling. But, you know, I can now reiterate that from Jaron's point of view, because that's what you're trying to convey, right? There's going to be a buffer, a point where you go, no, that I must hold as true.
Yeah, they actually have a truth ceiling that they don't want to address. And they keep making that truth ceiling stronger and stronger and stronger, and making it harder for themselves to get through and past that truth ceiling because they put it there in the first place. And what we're dealing with now is a perfect example of that. Sorry, go on, John.
I was going to say, the number of times they strike that truth ceiling, right? Can we develop a frequency from that and call it the medium of truth?
A probability distribution pattern.
No, it's a truth ceiling is a good word. Or, yeah, it's just how much can you handle at the same time? Because the truth ceiling does actually change. And even over time, an adamant truth ceiling can, like 10 years later, when you've done different things with your life, literally moved on to other subjects, doing other things, it can suddenly like not matter as much anymore because you've changed. So truth ceiling is like a really temporary thing that just happens when you're like getting too much pressure from information. And then at some point you're just going to say, no more, stop, just stop. I don't want to handle more.
Yeah, but to throw out the whole, just simply what's just a method to establish the cause of an effect. It to me is that's throwing everything out. What is it? The baby in the bathwater? Like what? When
Dude,
that
it's
can,
not just
when
the
you
baby
can
in the
do that,
bathwater.
when you can do that, that's
It's
been
the
done.
entire bathroom.
I mean, it's a scientific experiment. It's like a really extravagantly fancy way of saying troubleshooting. Is troubleshooting not a thing? Can you not establish the cause of why something is happening? Is that?
Well,
I don't get it.
Well, it's simpler
because you
than
don't
might
like,
think.
huh?
Sorry, I just want to say it's simpler than you might think, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
May I speak?
Oh well, if chocolate's going to
as chocolate made his,
you never quite
You never quite can tell if chocolate's got to make his point before he got rumpused. We don't know. Did you make your point, Chocolate?
I mean, basically, yeah. It's just I'm okay with establishing what's science, what's not science. Because there is science, there is pseudoscience, and it's simply a method of establishing the cause of an effect. I don't see how saying that now just doesn't exist, or you can't do it because you haven't established every cause that it could possibly be. That sounds crazy to me. That sounds like if a dude I know decided to put a freaking egg in a glass of water and decided that he's going to move that egg by changing the density of the water, and he was able to do it, he did it. I agree with Neil deGrasse. He did it whether you like it or not. You could do it too. And then the next person could do it too. And then everybody can do it. But just because you think that you might have a different cause, that doesn't negate the fact that he just did that, and that you just did that, and that the next man just did that. Like, that's crazy to me.
That's the Egg Council got to you again.
Yeah, it's annoying. It's like people can't accept that that's a scientific experiment, even though it was completely laid out. Shout out to my boy Riley. Completely laid it out with a hypothesis and everything. Simple, right? It's probably the most simple scientific experiment that you can come up with. Just simply putting an egg in a glass of water, salt water, adding more salt, moving the egg, and the egg goes up. Wow, whoop-de-doo. But it was laid out the way it should have been, and it was established. Now, yeah, you could go forth and create another experiment if you don't like that one. That doesn't negate the fact that that was just done. Like, come on, man. Just be honest, man. Like, I don't like. It's the same shit. The balls were having a problem with it.
Yeah, I know.
Right, but why did they have
Hold on, Arwen. Hold on, Neil. Just hold on.
Please, I've been trying to get in for like a.
So's 10th. So's 10th.
So
10th hasn't got a word in yet. Just after 10th, Arwen. Go ahead, 10th.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to rant. I'm sorry.
No, good round. Good round.
All right. So the way I see it is, if pseudoscience came in, it's because they gave up the scientific method and allowed pseudoscience to come in, and that's why we have all these lies. By going back to the scientific method, and if it never left it, you wouldn't have these pseudoscience lies. And it seems like Jaron and them, for whatever reason, want to throw the baby and the bathwater out. So instead of realizing, you know what, if real scientific method was followed on all these things, we wouldn't be having all these lies. So let's get back to that, and we won't have any lies. But what they do is say all science is that. They're making a terrible mistake here.
The problem I'm having is that I feel. I'm sorry, Arwen. Give me 1 second. The problem I'm having is, let's say his independent variable wasn't salt, wasn't changing the density of the medium. Let's say it was electrostatics, in quotes. And he got that, or they got that, or whoever's doing that, they got it to work. Would that now be an established scientific experiment? Would you accept that then?
Yes, I would. For electrostatics as the cause. I mean, if you then went on to infer that that's actually ether, I wouldn't accept that. Back to qualifying what your independent variable is. If that which you assume causes an effect is electrostatic forces, then it must be A, your independent variable in the hypothesis, B, real, and C, capable of being varied and manipulated by you, the researcher. If you vary and manipulate that which you assume causes an effect, and it causes an effect, you invalidate your null. I.e., you can't have it not be the cause. It is the cause then. You've established it as the cause. You varied it and it caused it.
Right. Can I say something? I don't think that, like, the scientific method is really even the problem. Like, for example, with the relative density experiment from Tony, the ballers have a problem with that. I don't think glowbusters have a problem with it. The problem is, however, is that it takes the... Hold on, I'm not done yet.
But I'm just correcting they do have a problem with that.
Out of their sales of their own theories, and that's what they don't like, and that's why they just act like belligerent children and start to suddenly deny it. Because it took away their little project.
The reason they do have an issue with it is because gas go down, go boom, boom, according to ether believers. They want part of it to be the same as gravity.
Right,
Yeah,
but they
let me
only
add
have a problem
something.
when they refer
Let me add
to
something.
their own conceptions, not the isolated experiment. I mean, I've heard Bob say, like, yeah, of course that works. It's just density.
I
So-
just laid it out
Let me add some.
for you. Sorry, Brian. I just laid it out for you with the electrostatics, right? Because you didn't test that. Well, then you can't say that changing the density of the medium with salt was an actual experiment, because you think that that's the sole cause, but you haven't tested all the other causes. So that's the part that's kind of irking
But that's
me.
outrageous.
How?
Yeah, can I please add
You can just
something?
before I address chocolate, and then Brian next. Hold on, Owen. You're after Brian. That's outrageous. The burden of proof is on the person making the claim. If you want to claim that electrostatic forces cause relative density disequilibrium, then you need to vary it to show it causes it. Not tell the person that's shown that you can change the density of the medium to displace the object, that they have to also validate what you claim causes it. That's outrageous.
Yep.
It's their burden to prove.
No.
Well, I have some
I would agree.
actual quotes from Globebusters yesterday. One is from, well, I was listening earlier, one is from Witsit, and I was in the shower now, so I was listening, I'm pretty sure it was Witsit saying it, and he was talking the flat side, and the other one is from Bob. Witsit said that Anthony didn't cover all variables, as in that he didn't account for electrostatics, let's just say, right? Yeah, exactly what Chocolate's saying, right? He said he didn't, right? So in that case then, what Witsit has to do is perform the same test, right? But don't change the density of the medium. Just use electrostatics, right? And that means it should happen in air, in water, in honey, in everything, because the density of the medium is not involved in it. So Witsit has to prove the claim by doing the experiment without changing the density of the medium, and the particular medium doesn't matter, right? Because the whole point of it is it's electrostatics. Just hold the medium's density constant, and you create the up or the down with electrostatics. Now, that's what I would say to him, from him saying that Riley, right, Anthony, right, didn't account for electrostatics within his experiment. His experiment was that he claimed that if he changes the density of the medium, it'll move the egg, right? He changed the density of the medium, it moved the egg. He proved his hypothesis. Flatside actually said that to him. He said, but he proved his hypothesis. His hypothesis was, change the density of the medium, the egg will move. He did, and it moved. He proved it, right? But Bob said yesterday, listen to this. This is going to support Chocolate. This is going to support you as well, right? Bob said yesterday, right, on Globebusters, that if you take an evacuated chamber, which is a vacuum chamber with the air, let's say brought down to whatever 10 to the minus 2 torr, so it's a vacuum, right? Right. Still has some air in it, but it's a vacuum. If you put in hydrogen into that, which is the least dense gas we know of, right? The least dense matter we're aware of, that the hydrogen would sit at the bottom of the chamber. Unless you put in helium, and then the hydrogen will go to the top and the helium will go to the bottom.
What?
He said, I guarantee you, here's what he said, I guarantee you the helium will sit at the bottom. That's what he said.
Oh, right.
So
he's just set in defiance of gas behaviour. No, gas expands in all directions to fill the availability of the volume of the container it has to fill. It doesn't go down, go boom, boom. You don't have gas puddles. It's as stupid as Thunderfoot's assertion that's the same, which is that gas behaves like bouncy balls poured into a fish tank. It doesn't. It expands in all directions at high velocity to fill the container. PV equals nRT. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hitting the thanks button and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
day! What a lovely day!